Hey crew, welcome back to Philly Beat RC for another detailed how-to video on how to replace your servo, your steering servo in your 3S Arrma. I'm going to use an Amazon servo today. I have it in my Granite. It's been working great, so we're going to go for it once again. The problem with that though is that your servo saver on your Spectrum servo will not fit. That is a 23 tooth, this is a 25 tooth. So you'll have to buy one of these with the servo. 2 mil will take care of business today. I think a nice little needle nose pliers would also come in handy. All right, shall we get started? Let's roll. Let's commence by removing the power button. Not a hard job, guys, but there are a few somewhat tedious steps. Therefore, this is where hopefully this detailed video will help you out, and we'll get you through it. I know when I was searching for a video, I was hoping for a little more information, so hopefully I could fill that void with this video. All right, power button, I'm just showing, it has a little dowel there. That way you could tell that it's actually mounted properly. 2 screws to the ESC. So these 2 screws also hold the cover of the receiver box. Peel that back a bit. At this time, we're going to get underneath the car. So there's 5 screws to remove from underneath the car. These 4 here remove that whole assembly from the top of the car, but look, they have the little dots. I don't know if they're there on purpose, but they come in handy. And then this here, there's a tiny screw in there. I will try to show you it. That's what connects your drag link, the connector from your servo saver to your front end that actually moves your steering. It's just one small screw through that cutout at the bottom of the chassis. So I get that one out first. It's a little screw. And then we have 4 here from the bottom of the chassis. These are the 4 countersunk style screws. Again, they have those dots. Just notice that. So I had a hand tool here, hand hex, but I abort to the impact. Okay, let's rock. So I'm using the Arrma servo saver, and they are a little hard to come by in Ontario right now. I think the pandemic has made everything sold out, hard to get parts. So on my Granite, if you're in a pinch, I actually just press that 23 tooth right onto the 25 tooth servo, and it's been working fine for like a month now if you're in a pickle. Here's the receiver box. So it houses the receiver, and that is the servo on the right hand side. If you flip it over, Arrma's actually put this handy little diagram to show you the direction the servo saver is to reside. So cool. So at this point, it's safe to say we could take out the 4 screws that actually holds the Spectrum servo in place. Remember, these four screws have washers on them, which are different than the rest of the screws in this installation, or replacement, I guess. All right, cool. You'll see that the receiver box is even still a little wet, guys. I even washed the car for you tonight. So there's your old servo saver. You need to keep that drag link, that piece that's hanging off of it. You will put that on the new servo saver. Here is a critical Philly Beat RC little tip. I take a permanent Sharpie marker and I mark all those wires where they all go into the receiver box. That way when you put it back together, there's no thinking or of what lengths are needed, and you just put them right at that mark and you're off to the races. Honestly, I think that saves a lot of time. So here's the cover, has a gasket, don't lose that. And the gray, orange, and black wire is the one that belongs to our old servo, so we're going to turf it. And it's coming out of the STR port. STR for steering. Now don't yank on the cables, guys. Pull at the connector. I'm just being proactive tonight. My servo actually still works. I just didn't want the hassles of it failing on me because I don't really trust it whatsoever. So I will keep it as a spare. So now you'll notice I'm grabbing one of the other cables that has the black Sharpie mark on it and just putting it in that wireway. So there's the drag link from your old setup, guys. You need to put it on the new servo saver. And we will install that shortly. So the servo holder has 2 notches in it, but it is designed solely for the Spectrum servo. The tabs on the new Amazon servo, you'll notice how it's rocking, doesn't fit ideally. So therefore we're going to trim those tabs off. I use a knife. I even file off a little bit if you need to, but as long as it's held down by 4 screws, which is super solid. So if you cut them right off like I do tonight, I'm sure that it's in place good enough. So now we're going to install this. So put the new cable down through the opening of the servo holder. With the wire exiting the servo at the top of the screen. So now there's that little hook. There's a little hook holding the cable in place there, guys. I'm trying to show it to you, and it's kind of like a little wire stay, if you will, and you could pull down through the bottom and get whatever play on that wire that you like. I'm just trying to point to it with the hex driver right now. Just clips inside of there. There you go. So at this point we can put the 4 screws back into the new servo, hold it in place. I feel like I was trying to find some information like this when I was looking for a video. So now we're going to take the new cable and fish it up. There's a gap between the receiver box and the servo. It's wide open. Just fish it up through there and pull all its length. Yep. Not super tight, but snug. Now at this point, now you can install that cable in the wireway. You did not mark this one with the Sharpie, mind you, because it was new. And I'm just pushing it in there. Beautiful. So we're going to plug it in. All that you need to know here, guys, is that the black wire goes to the right. Black to negative, which should line up with the other wires that should be black on the right-hand side. The white, the reds, they're irrelevant at this point. Provided the black is on the right-hand side and in the negative position, you are good to go. So now just fold this wire into the receiver box, and that servo it's done. It's wired. All right, so we had one more wire with the the black Sharpie marking on it. Push that into the wireway as well. Now I'm using a tool to push down on it, but be careful that you don't scar or hurt the jacket of that wiring. That's about it. So I'm replacing the receiver box cover and ESC, which use the same screw. And note that there's a wire hanging under my left thumb. That's the power wire for the fan on the motor. That does not go in the receiver box at all. So now this last wire, I have a little bit of excess on it. So what I do is I turn the receiver box and whole assembly over and just kind of I grab at it with the hex driver, and there's some room for some extra excess wire in that cavity there. All right, so if you power up, plug a battery in, and set your steering trim to neutral, we are going to install the servo saver on our new servo. It's critical that the servo is in neutral position. So there you can see I have the drag link, the old drag link installed on the new servo saver. And you just want to try to get that on as squarely as possible. I like this approach with the large channel locks because I feel like it pushes down on it quite squarely, if that makes any sense. So now at this point, we'll just power up the car. Guys, be careful, put the car on stands because in case you hit the throttle, she's going to take off on you. All right, so the servo's working great. At this point, we used a little dab of blue Loctite and lock her down. Again, you'll notice the diagram shows you where the tab is to be pointed. So here's the linkage that our servo, our drag link, is going to connect to in order to connect the servo to the steering. Now that's a little nylock nut within it. So I'll show you what happens further into the video here. But that's your drag link. You want to place that underneath the portion of the car to the bell crank. Now you can flip the car over. Now's a good time to secure that whole receiver servo assembly to the car with the 4 countersunk screws. And the 5th screw is through that little cutout where we removed that earlier. Now by moving the arm on the servo and by moving the wheels, those two need to align with one another. This is kind of a tedious task. You'll see how they're both moving. So what's important here is that nut, as you're fishing to line up those 2 wheels with that screw, you could potentially knock that nut out. And it's so small that you might not even hear it pop out. So you may need to get a finger on the back side and just ensure that it stays in place. But once you get that thread started, you are good to go. All right, power up. Let's try this baby out. Again, put the car on stands, guys. Good idea. Is it gonna work? Sweet. All right, real quickly, guys, before you run your car with a brand new servo, you must set your steering endpoints. So at this point with the power off, turn your steering to the right and your trigger all the way forward. Now power up the transmitter. You see the flashing light, therefore the car is ready to accept our calibration. Power on the car, and you'll see the steering does work. Now we're going to toggle our left thumb on the 3rd channel there. So if you turn the steering one way, whatever way you wish, now if you focus in on that wheel, incrementally it keeps moving with every click. So you want to stop. When that wheel stops moving, that's when you've set your endpoint. Now switch directions. Now, again, focus in on that wheel, and you'll notice every time I push the toggle on the 3rd channel, the wheel moves. That last click, when the wheel no longer moves, that is when you are done. So this ensures that you're not trying to stress the servo further than it can go mechanically to the car. And your power off.